Batman: Three Jokers is a controversial yet captivating series that has sparked numerous speculations on whether it's canon to the Batman timeline or not. One Joker was tough enough for the Bat family to handle, but what happens when three Jokers show up and taunt Bruce and those he loves? The Three Jokers revolves around betrayal, the psyche of the Joker, how he affects the city of Gotham, and most of all, what makes a Joker the real Joker. So without further spoilers, let's dive right into the story. Oh, and a small request, consider becoming a member through the link in the description. It helps us in ways you can't imagine, and we'll soon start launching uncensored videos for members. And now, let's begin. Batman: Three Jokers. Issue number 1. Joker's Robin. Rain is Gotham's secret muse. They find the city on the darkest of nights, and tonight is no different. Rain pelts the Wayne mansion as Thomas Wayne's gravestone ominously stands in the silence of the night. That is, until the Batmobile erratically drives through the compound and crashes into it. The stone breaks with a loud crunch, and the Batmobile comes to a stop with the sound of clashing gears. Smoke from the Batmobile rises into the air, as though signifying the desecration of Thomas Wayne's grave. And then, Bruce stumbles out of the car while clutching his left side, which seems to be bleeding profusely. He takes a moment to rest himself on the Batmobile, and then begins to stumble towards the mansion with heavy steps. We are then shown the Batcave. Bats swirl and swarm the ceiling with the arrival of Bruce and Alfred, and this is juxtaposed by Bruce's words that read, "Time heals all wounds, unless they manage to kill you first." Alfred is helping Bruce into the cave as we see all the memorabilia and equipment the Batcave houses, the various costumes, its replicas, and of course, the various Joker weapons Batman has hidden behind bulletproof glass over the years. A fake pistol that shoots a flag with the words "click, click, click" scrawled on it. Razor-sharp metal Joker cards, a yakety-yak talking teeth toy, acid-spraying flower, and an infected fish that carries the Joker virus. This display is ominously displayed between the replicas of Catwoman and Bane, while the huge 8-ball is stored on top. Bruce is worried about desecrating his father's grave, and Alfred promises to fix them the instant he has managed to fix Bruce. For the millionth time, the bloodied floor, the bloodied bat belt, and the blood-covered cowl make for a horrific sight as Alfred approaches the well-worn medical tools beside the gurney. This section of the Batcave could easily be mistaken for the lair of a serial killer, as we see Alfred cut away Bruce's suit as he begins to stitch up his wounds. Through their conversation, we learn that Penguin managed to stab him in the side today using his umbrella. We then see Bruce's battered body, a landscape of horrid scars, memories of the numerous times he has cheated death, or markers for every time his mind has managed to come back from the brink of insanity. As Alfred stitches his skin, Bruce remembers the story behind each scar. The huge one on his spine is from when Bane broke his back. The U-shaped burn scar on his side is from the Riddler using his hot staff. The 3 gashes on his chest are courtesy of the Catwoman, and the huge bite marks on his left tricep are all thanks to Killer Croc. Then there are 3 holes in his back barely filled up by scar tissue, all thanks to the Scarecrow. And then the hole that hurts the most, just like the one in his heart. The wound he got when the Joker shot him through the left shoulder back in the day, the early days, when the Joker used to wear a flat, wide-brimmed hat. As Batman remembers this, he starts to unravel and dive into the mystery of Joker and his entire being once again, because the next scar he remembers is the acid burn mark on his right shoulder, courtesy of the Joker when he had reinvented himself, when he had adopted a new persona and had new tricks up his sleeve, like his iconic acid spraying flower, and the razor-sharp Joker cards, which he had used to give him a scar on the same shoulder. Batman then focuses on the hole in his neck, given by the Joker in his last encounter, a stark contrast when compared to the ingenuity and tricks of the last few scars. This was given to him by the Joker when he used the flag from his own fake gun to stab Batman in the neck. A ruthless and brutal move, a desperate and bold one, but a chaotic one as always. As Bruce remembers this, the Joker's laugh begins to echo in his head once again, and the most horrid memory of his life comes back to haunt him once again. The night he had lost his parents, he was starry-eyed and smitten by the movie The Mark of Zorro. It was a perfect night. The movie was great. Bruce had a huge box of popcorn, and the people of Gotham were being awfully nice to them, but then they had spotted that their chauffeur and car were missing. In an attempt to find it, they had turned into a nearby alley, and that is when a street thug ambushed them, or so it had seemed back then. He had demanded Thomas's wallet and Martha's pearls, but that had just been for the sake of theatrics. He didn't wait a second for the precious things to be handed over. He simply shot them after making the demands. With tears streaming down his face, Bruce had turned around to stare right into the barrel of the gun. Still, for some reason, instead of pulling the trigger, the thug had simply ran away, leaving Bruce stranded in the alley with the bodies of his dead parents beside him. Bruce is lost in this memory in the present day because he fails to answer Alfred, and what breaks him out of it is the emergency news playing on the TV. Joker is back and has just executed the remaining Moxon crime family. His war against organised crime continues, and what's peculiar is that the Moxon crime family is the same family that was accused of orchestrating the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne back in the day. They were exonerated when a petty criminal named Joe Chill took the blame, and he is currently serving a life sentence for his supposed crime in Blackgate Penitentiary. Either way, Batman knows he needs to be out there if the Joker is back, and so, without resting even for a moment, Bruce picks up his cowl and heads out. This is ominously juxtaposed by the writer's words that read, Number 1, the criminal. Next, we catch up with Barbara Gordon at the gym. She is running on the treadmill at maximum speed and is clearly battling some inner demons. She is scowling at yet another ad for an untested drug with numerous side effects, claiming to take care of medical issues that don't actually exist when the emergency news catches her eye. But this isn't the same one that Bruce saw at the Batcave. This news is about the murder of Kalani Apaka, a beloved comedian who during his early days was called the Fat Man because he would dress up in a huge Batman costume while performing his sets. What's curious is the fact that Apaka was murdered by Joker as well. In fact, the murder was streamed live to the entire world from Apaka's home. This is when Barbara's treadmill gives up and breaks down as she takes a much-needed leave from her workout session because the Joker is on the prowl once again. Barbara takes a bath as she is once again reminded of the time the Joker shot her in the stomach. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, just like Apaka, while dressed as a tourist. Barbara remembers feeling helpless, something she won't allow to happen today. She turns off the shower and gets ready to take up the mantle of Batgirl once again, which is again ominously juxtaposed by the writer's words that read, Number 2, the criminal. And then we catch up with Jason Todd, aka Red Hood. He is currently fighting Joker's thugs in a graveyard and questioning them about the Joker in the process. It seems that though Bruce and Barbara have begun investigating the Joker again today, Jason has been hot on his heels for a few weeks. However, Jason is once again distracted by another emergency news broadcast, this time reporting another murdered committed by the Joker. Even the news broadcaster is perplexed by this third sighting of the Joker in the same night. This time, he was spotted by eyewitnesses and CCTV at Ace Chemicals. Details of what happened are being kept under wraps, but then the news broadcaster sheds light on how all of this began. It began a week ago when the Joker escaped from Arkham Asylum once again and committed the murder of Dr. Roger Huntoon, who was there to interview inmates for a sequel to his best-selling book titled POW Psychology, Understanding the Supermen and Women. As the newscaster sheds light on the book's content, we see Jason get overpowered by the thugs, and they remove his mask in the process. Jason is still wearing a mask over his eyes, and this is juxtaposed with what Dr. Huntoon's book is all about. It talks about why superheroes and villains use masks. According to him, it allows masked people to separate themselves from their conscience, and this disassociation allows them to unleash their darker and inhumane sides without dire ramifications to their psyche. Jason is now on the ground, and the thugs are now pointing a gun to his head, and this is juxtaposed starkly by the newscaster's words as he tells us about the second book in the series, Bang, Psychology, The Damaged Supermen and Women. The book talks about the trauma the psyche suffers, whether it's a masked hero or a villain. According to him, this endless barrage of trauma after endless confrontation while being disassociated from their consciences creates an endless cycle. A cycle that leaves the bad guys and the good guys virtually indistinguishable from one another. However, this conclusion is something the newscaster doesn't agree with, because for the people of Gotham, it has always been clear who the good and bad guys are." These words seem to give Jason renewed strength as he remembers the night he was murdered by the Joker. "Let's crack his head open!" the Joker had screamed as he had hit Jason on the head with a crowbar again and again until his skull had cracked, and the thugs currently pointing a gun to his head are planning the same. They plan to crack his head open using a bullet this time because Jason is no longer wearing a helmet he started to wear after what the Joker did to him. However, this antagonization is exactly what Jason needed to overcome his fear. He quickly manages to overpower the remaining thugs in the next few minutes while dodging bullets and breaking jaws in the process. Once they are all taken care of, he picks up his Red Hood helmet and walks away. And the scene of Jason picking up his helmet is juxtaposed by the writer's words that read, "Number 3, the clown." And this takes us to Ace Chemicals, where Detective Harvey Bullock is removing the red helmet of the original Red Hood from infected men the Joker murdered using the Joker toxin. All of them have been dressed up like him. They're all in black tuxedos with a red cape tied around their necks. And this puzzles all of the officers present at the scene, including Commissioner Gordon. A trail of chemicals leaks out of one of the nearby storage containers as they all speculate the 3 murders committed tonight. 3 Jokers in 3 different places all at once. The same MO, the same style, and eyewitnesses at each location confirmed his presence. What could this mean? It's quite obvious that the Joker is using imposters of himself, but which is the real one? Detective Bullock and the rest of the officers start making bets as to which murder was committed by the real Joker. Detective Bullock feels that the real Joker committed the Ace Chemical murders, while 2 more officers take the other 2 locations in the bet. Commissioner Gordon stays out of this pool because Batman has shown up to the scene. He is hoping the Caped Crusader will shed some light on the murders. Batman begins examining the crime scene and quickly discovers that 3 men murdered here at Ace Chemicals weren't factory employees. They were brought in specifically to be murdered at this location. However, because their bodies were bleached, their fingerprints were burned off, and their DNA was corrupted. What's more is that the use of Joker toxin has broken their jaw, which makes matching dental records nearly impossible. Batman then begins talking over the radio, but Detective Bullock hilariously thinks that he is conversing with him. Through Batman's conversation, we learn that the 3 men were likely homeless, likely brought in to distract from his real purpose at the factory. Batman then looks at the ground and finds traces of tracks belonging to a truck. The Joker likely stole a truck that is nowhere to be seen. We then see Batgirl perched on top of the factory, and this is who Batman was talking to. She sees the empty chemical container below her, and it's easy enough to deduce that whatever chemical was stored in this container was stolen by the Joker. She jumps down and finally reveals to Gordon and the rest of the force what Batman and her have deduced so far. It is no coincidence that the 3 Jokers were spotted. They easily managed to take out CCTVs in areas of the factory, a Parker's penthouse, and the restaurant where the Moxon family was murdered, where they didn't want to be seen. Yet they left CCTVs up in obvious places to ensure that they were spotted when entering and exiting. Eyewitnesses weren't murdered to corroborate their presence in all 3 locations. This has all been an intended setup by the 3 Jokers. They wanted to be seen. Batman then tells Gordon to focus the force's attention on the stolen truck instead of the murders. And although Ace Chemicals doesn't have records on what was stored in the empty container, it is easy enough to deduce that it was some variant of the Joker toxin, judging by what happened to the 3 murdered men in the compound. This is when the cacophony of Joker's laugh echoes in the factory, and all of them turn around to realize that one of the infected men seems to have survived the toxin. An ambulance quickly rushes the man to the hospital, and mysteriously the nurse attending to the man keeps his face hidden from the officers as they load the gurney into the ambulance. The ambulance rushes the infected man to the hospital, and Batman and Batgirl decide to escort it because they don't want to miss this chance of interviewing the only survivor of Joker's assault. However, they aren't the only ones itching for answers. Someone else is too, and that someone is currently inside the ambulance holding the survivor up by the throat and demanding answers. It's Jason, and he is threatening to kill the survivor if he doesn't tell him what the Joker said before bleaching the men's bodies. When the driver spots this commotion, the ambulance slams into the Batmobile, which is more than enough to prompt Batman to make his move. He puts the Batmobile on autopilot, jumps on the ambulance's roof, and then kicks his way in through the back doors. Batman confronts Jason by telling him that he is endangering the survivor's life because if his heart rate rises enough, he will go into cardiac arrest due to the Joker toxin running through his veins. When Jason doesn't listen, Batman punches Jason, prompting him to drop the survivor together and confront Batman. However, this is when, on the outside, Batgirl uses the tire shredder on her bike to stop the ambulance. The sound of the tire popping and the ambulance screeching to a halt is juxtaposed by the looming headlights approaching a lone raccoon on the road on the other side of the town. The truck of a moment screeches to avoid the raccoon, but then straightens itself and heads straight towards it. However, this gives the raccoon enough time to jump out of the way, and as the truck continues down its path, we see it leaving a trail of green chemicals, the same chemical that was leaking from the empty container at Ace Chemicals. Joker's laughter echoes through the night as the truck drives further out of the city and then makes a right turn deep into the woods. It continues to leave an inviting trail, as though forcing the GCPD and the Bat family to follow its trail. The truck comes to a halt outside a lone cabin in the woods, and the Joker steps out, laughing and claiming that he has been having the best time of his life lately. The Joker knocks on the door, and we see that it is the Joker who likes to crack jokes and has tricks up his sleeve. He is the clown, the one that likes to use razor-sharp Joker cards and acid spray from his suit flowers. However, what's more mysterious is that Joker's first iteration opens the door, the one that wears a flat, wide-brimmed hat, the one that shot Barbara back in the day, and he seems to be wearing the same Hawaiian shirt right now. Through their talks, we learn that the wide-brimmed hat Joker killed a packer, while the other Joker is responsible for the murders at Ace Chemicals. The Joker with the hat is the comedian, but they seem to have a boss waiting for them, a boss in charge, because someone among them has to be. They both laugh loudly enough to send bats in the area flying away, and this scene is abruptly cut away as we catch up with Batman in the ambulance once again. He is currently administering a second antidote to the survivor to stabilize him. He also apologizes on Jason's behalf and asks the survivor to be as calm as possible if he wants to survive. Barbara, meanwhile, is confronting Jason for his actions on the outside, who reveals to her that the murdered men weren't plain old homeless men like they suspected. The three men were picked from a halfway house. They were all prior criminals with their own rap sheets. The survivor that he chose to assault was charged with domestically abusing his 5-year-old child. However, this confrontation about morals is nipped in the bud by Batman, who already knows what needs to be done. Jason has been investigating the Joker since he escaped from Arkham Asylum, and Batman commends this. He and Barbara should have been doing this. And then Batman reveals what we as the reader already know. He suspects that there might be more to this mystery and that the Joker isn't working alone, which is why he tells Jason and Barbara that they all need to work together as well on this one. We then catch up with two Jokers inside the cabin in the woods. Now that they have the chemicals and Bat family's attention after murdering a packer, they are wondering what their next move is supposed to be. And then the third Joker, their boss, reveals himself, the same one that stabbed Batman in the neck using his own fake gun's flag, the meaner one, the bold and ruthless one. He is the criminal, and he is sitting in a chair with a serious expression on his face as he reveals the master plan to us while telling the other two, "We do what we always do, boys. We try to make a better Joker. One of you will set up the factory, while the other will help me with our casting call. It's time the Joker had more meaning." The clown takes responsibility for setting up the factory, while the comedian chooses to head the casting call because he is the oldest one, and this means he has always had a good eye for talent. The two, however, begin bickering, and to stop this, the criminal pulls out a coin and tosses it in the air. Both the other Jokers call heads, and unsurprisingly the coin lands in their favour, and so the criminal is left to make his choice, and so he does. One of them will accompany him, but which Joker will it be? We don't get to see that right now. The other Joker, however, has been charged with drawing the baths, something we will come to know about very soon. We then see Jason and Bruce driving to the Gotham Aquarium based on Jason's lead, while Barbara follows them on her bike. Batman is trying to be nice to Jason by including him and genuinely telling him that he needs his help, but Jason still has some way to go because it's clear that he still doesn't like Bruce. He blames Bruce for having small passenger seats in each Batmobile, which signifies that he doesn't like having partners. This makes Batman scowl at Jason because seems to be projecting a tad bit too much in this instance. They put their differences aside and head into the aquarium. The aquarium was built by Bruce's parents, and it has been closed for 2 days because the main water supply failed 2 days ago. Jason found seawater's traces from the aquarium on one of the wrenches used by Joker's thug, making it easy to figure the rest out. Batman uses the new light on his bat symbol to lead the way, while Jason puts on his mask and gets ready for action. Jason suspects that the other two Jokers might just be infected victims of the Joker virus under the real Joker's control, but Batman begs to differ. The toxin leaves its victims helpless, laughing, and unable to stop themselves. This wasn't the case with what they saw with the other Jokers tonight. They seem to be very much in control of themselves, and this has caused Bruce to be more cautious than ever. It's why he has enlisted Jason's help despite their differences. And before Jason can make another snide remark, we see why the aquarium has been shut down as Batman turns towards the fish tank. The entire water supply has been contaminated with the Joker toxin, and this is apparent because every fish in the tank now has an eerie and creepy Joker smile. Batman watches a large shadow approaching him, and moments later there's a huge great white shark with the Joker's smile staring back at him. Jason and Barbara are both unnerved by the creepy shark, and things begin to unravel as Jason informs the two of them that his helmet has detected multiple unknown personnel swarming at their current location. Soon, we see the three of them ambushed by Gaggy, Joker's old sidekick in his early days. Joker used to call him his court jester back in the day, which is a version of his Robin, if you may. Gaggy wields a cattle prod and commands an army of thugs with funny names like Biff, Pow, Zoink, Bam, and more. They begin shooting at the Bat family, but guns are no match for the three of them. However, each bullet they dodge manages to hit the aquarium glass behind them, and it is only a matter of time before it breaks. Gaggy, however, doesn't seem to care because he unleashes his men upon them, and for some twisted reason, Jason seems to be his primary target. Barbara, Bruce, and Jason make quick work of the thugs, but the bullet holes in the aquarium seem to be increasing despite their best efforts. And while Jason is occupied with two thugs simultaneously, Gaggy uses this chance to sneak up on him and electrocutes him with the cattle prod. As Jason steams on the ground, Gaggy makes an ominous statement that will mean a lot as we continue the story. He says, "Ha ha ha, yes, the Joker said you'd beg for me to stop. What fun we'll have together." However, this statement seems to spark something inside Jason. He quickly turns around, pulls out his gun, and then shoots it at Gaggy. However, he wasn't aiming for the Joker's sidekick. Instead, he was aiming for the aquarium behind him. The glass finally breaks, and the waiting Joker shark breaks out of it, its jaw wide open. Gaggy is swallowed whole while Jason narrowly escapes. Moments later, eerie silence takes over the aquarium. The men who weren't already incapacitated have been knocked out by the Joker virus steaming from the water. Batman and Batgirl use their capes to protect themselves, while Jason's mask does that job for him. Batman doesn't like that Jason let Gaggy be killed because he might have been their only lead for what the Joker is planning. Jason tries to justify his actions by saying that the stolen chemicals have been taken care of now that the aquarium is empty, but Batman begs to differ because the aquarium wasn't large enough to house all of the stolen chemicals. And this is when a familiar yet haunting voice catches their attention, and he throws piranhas from a fishbowl at Batman while mocking him with a cruel joke. This is the Clown, and he dodges Jason's punch and smashes the fishbowl directly on his face in retaliation. The Clown then leaps at Jason, removes his mask, and throws it away because he wants to see the fear in Jason's eyes. After all, the Clown was the one who cracked Jason's through, so he steps in and punches the Clown in the face without hesitation. Batman then uppercuts him, and Barbara shoves him through a nearby glass window. The Clown is incapacitated, but the questions in Batman's mind remain unanswered, and a panicked Batgirl demands answers. She doesn't know what to make of this. This is the real Joker. She knows he has changed his appearance over the years, but she is sure this is him. He has the same look, the same MO, but Batman has no answers for her, at least not right now. This is when Jason walks in and kicks the incapacitated Clown, while Batman is busy talking with Commissioner Gordon over the radio. He informs him about the Clown's capture, but this is when Gordon informs Batman that the police have another Joker cornered on 7th and Broadway. Batman gets ready to leave and says to Barbara and Jason, "Secure him, wait for Arkham Transport, and make sure you do a search. He's always got something up his sleeve." These words by Batman are juxtaposed by the Clown, now tied to a chair in the aquarium, as razor-sharp Joker cards fall out of his sleeve and make a huge clang sound. as they hit the tiled floor. Meanwhile, Jason and Barbara are busy trying to ascertain whether this is the real Joker. Both of them are quite puzzled because everything seems to be up to the mark, yet there are discrepancies. For example, the Joker hasn't used Gaggy in decades, so why would he use him now? And it has been a few years since he used his razor-sharp Joker cards and laughing fish, yet he is using them now? This is when the clown wakes up and uses his third iconic weapon, the flower, to spray some acid at Jason. Batgirl helps him get out of the way in the nick of time, which only makes the clown cackle louder. They quickly perform a search on him and take away all his weapons. But the clown cackles louder and tells them that he himself is the real trap that they should be afraid of. The clown's mind games now begin, and Jason is unable to escape them. He starts by questioning why in the world would Jason use the name of Red Hood after knowing that it's the name of his killer. Jason tells him that he does so in rebellion, which only makes the clown laugh louder and louder. Jason knows where this conversation is headed, and he decides to pull out his gun. Nothing is going to break this cycle unless I do it. Batman would never kill him, which is why I need to break the cycle, he says as Batgirl tries to stop him. But this is exactly what the clown wanted, and he continues to press Jason's buttons. Batgirl desperately tries to reason with Jason, but each word uttered by the clown moves Jason closer to pulling the trigger. And then the clown smiles menacingly as he pushes the final button, knowing what Jason is about to do. He says, "Do you remember what you said to me when I was breaking your skull in with a crowbar? Do you remember as blood streamed into your eyes and ears? I do. I remember those words, and I have always cherished them. You said, 'Please stop. Please see. If you let me live, I'll do anything. I'll be your Robin.'" The clown laughs louder as he reminds Jason of these words, and we see Jason get plunged into his most traumatic memory. The clown continues to push Jason by saying, "I could have properly made sure that you were dead that day. You know that, right? But I didn't. I let you live so you could become my Robin Red Hood. And look at you now. You are my Robin, shooting up people and making Batman's life miserable. You've made me proud." As the clown continues to cackle, Barbara catches the look in Jason's eyes, and she knows he is about to pull the trigger. She lunges at him while drawing her batarang, kicks Jason out of the way and throws the batarang at him. It misses and only grazes Jason's wrist, and this gives Jason enough time to steady his aim and shoot. Bang! The bullet enters the clown's head from the right temple and exits out the left. Blood sprays everywhere as the clown's lifeless body, along with the chair, falls to the ground as the Joker cards are flung in every possible direction. Barbara is mortified, and a sense of calm washes over Jason. But even in his dying moments, before hitting the floor, the clown is laughing, cackling maniacally with a sense of relief on his face. Barbara is furious. She screams at Jason and demands answers, and then Jason points out that there was a reason Barbara's batarang missed his hand. Even Bruce knows that she has a better aim than him, and so does Jason. Jason knows that she missed on purpose. She wanted the cycle to end as well. Barbara winces and then says, "Screw you, Jason!" Tears stream down her face as she storms out of the aquarium while leaving Jason alone with the evidence of his crime. Jason takes a moment to steady himself and his thoughts, and then something clicks to him. He looks in the distance and then looks at the clown's body as he says, "Shit. Man, I hope that's the right one." Batman 3. Jokers. Issue number 2. The Connection. The second issue begins with a hallucination of the comedian. He remembers the times he used to torture a family that wasn't his own by pretending to be the man of the house. The mother was forced to play along with him, and so was the child reluctantly. He remembers ignoring the child's blatant refusal to play along because it would give him a chance to inflict abuse and enjoy his time with them. He's hallucinating having a fresh meal of octopus tentacles with the family, however. In reality, he is having cat food. And this hallucination ends when he is confronted by the criminal, who is quite upset. We see that in the mother's place, the comedian has placed a mannequin in the chair, and in the son's place, he has placed a teddy bear to facilitate his hallucination. However, the criminal breaks this hallucination from the inside by smashing the mannequin that represents the mother. He is upset because it was the comedian's idea to give the Bat family a trail to follow them. The comedian had claimed that it would be more fun this way way, but this has led to the death of the clown, and the criminal isn't happy about it. We see the clown's body still lying on the floor of the Gotham Aquarium, as the laugh on its dead face represents the chaos that is about to be unleashed on the city of Gotham. We then see flies feast on the clown's dead eyes, as we then catch up with Commissioner Gordon outside the house of Judge Walls. This is the place Joker was reported to have been seen, and the same place he had mentioned to Batman over the radio. Gordon watches as 3 Rottweilers with Joker smile, bark at the window, and then get quickly sedated by Batman. They all head inside to find Judge Walls dead on the floor of his office, mauled to death by his own dogs apparently. However, Batman tells them that his preliminary assessment of the body has revealed that Walls was infected with the Joker virus before being mauled to death by his own dogs. Gordon puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that the reports of Joker being seen at Walls' house might have been about the infected judge himself. Batman realizes that Walls might have been targeted for being corrupt back in the day, but it still seems like a random hit, and Bruce can't quite make the connection or figure out what the Joker is planning. This is when Batgirl shows up to the scene and forces Batman to accompany her on a ride for a private conversation. Through their conversation and Commissioner Gordon's reaction to Red Hood's name, we learn that Jason is still considered a criminal in the eyes of the law, and as Batgirl and Batman drive away, she reveals to Bruce that Jason is now a criminal in her eyes as well. Bruce, however, takes the act of Jason killing a Joker too nonchalantly. He is adamant about making sure he says a Joker and not the Joker, but Barbara is too focused on Jason's actions. She wants Batman to do something, but through Bruce's words, it's revealed that he blames himself for what Jason has become. He blames himself for never checking his grave, for never being there for him after he came back. Now he has formed his own identity, and there's nothing he can do about it. Barbara is confused. She doesn't realize why Bruce never trained or confronted Jason after realizing he was alive. Why didn't he try to fix Jason then? Bruce then reveals that he had hoped Jason was like Barbara, as strong as her, which clearly wasn't the case. We then catch up with Jason, who is busy beating up more of Joker's thugs in order to get the information he wants. The thugs refuse to give up the location Jason wants, but he has grown quite ruthless, and while the thug he is questioning screams on the top of his lungs off screen, we catch up with Barbara and Bruce again. Bruce is leading her outside the city to the Blackgate prison. He explains that before revealing himself to Commissioner Gordon, he had surveyed the crime scene on his own. He found that Judge Walls was bludgeoned to death using his humanitarian award, ironically, and the fingerprints Bruce found on the award belonged to an inmate from Blackgate prison, Joe Chill, the man that was accused of murdering his parents. Batman enters the prison on his own, and as he walks through the halls, we see other criminals slowly back away from the bars out of sheer fear, including the mobster Rupert Thorne and Alexander Sartorius, aka Dr. Phosphorus. Bruce makes his way to Joe's cell, and the night of his parents' death has begun to haunt him again. He clearly remembers the face of the murderer, and as he tries to shake this memory out of his head, he fails to use his usual Batman voice. Instead, he speaks timidly, and this catches him off guard. Angered by his failure to control his emotions, Bruce uses the Batman voice loudly, and when no response comes, he kicks in the cell door. However, Joe isn't in the cell anymore, and for a moment, Bruce is once again taken aback when he sees the photos of Joe's family stuck to the cell wall. Barbara then comes to inform Bruce that Joe has been in the hospital for over 2 months because the man has been suffering from stage 4 cancer, and this only intensifies the mystery Bruce is trying to solve. He knows he will find clues as to how the fingerprints ended up on the humanitarian award if he checks the surveillance footage. But what's more important is to figure out Joe Chill's connection to all of this. However, this train of thought is interrupted when Batman is informed that Jason is accessing the Bat computer through his helmet, and based on the information that Jason had searched, Batman knew he had found the location of the other 2 Jokers. We then catch up with Jason as he enters the Gotham City Athletic Association building that has been shut down for a while. Ironically, he uses a crowbar to break into the premises and then draws his gun when he sees what is in the pool inside. Hundreds of men infected with the Joker toxin lie motionless in the pool as more and more toxin is pumped into it. Jason tests the water, confirms his suspicions, and then decides to radio Batgirl to relay what he has found. But that is when Jason is startled by one one of the men in the pool who is still alive and begging for help. Jason trips, and this moment of distraction is exactly what the comedian and the criminal needed. They grab Jason and incapacitate him instantly by hitting him on the head. As the criminal drags Jason into the facility's dark recesses, we see the comedian pick up Jason's helmet as he says, "Yes, he'll be perfect." When Jason finally wakes up again, he finds himself to be stripped off of his clothes and tied to a chair. He is then confronted by the criminal, who ominously recounts Jason's past and says that he has been reborn twice already. The first time was when Batman decided to give him a new life by training a petty criminal as his sidekick, and then the second time when the clown almost killed him, but Jason was born again. However, the criminal then claims that everything is supposed to happen in threes, making Jason lash out at him. Jason admits to killing the clown in the Gotham City aquarium and vows to do the same when he gets his hands on the criminal. This makes the criminal wince in pain and then laugh out loudly while tearing up from his eyes. Jason is startled by this weird display of emotions and pain, and the criminal then reveals that it hurts him every time he laughs. Jason tries to get some information by asking the criminal if he's the real Joker, but that is when the comedian joins the conversation and puts Jason's helmet back on his head. The helmet now has an eerie Joker smile painted on it, and through their next phase of the conversation, we learn that Jason decided to take up the mantle of Red Hood as a joke. But this means something much deeper to the criminal and the comedian, because this tells them that Jason finds relief only in inflicting pain on others. And just like them, he hates Batman. This is when the criminal leans in and whispers in Jason's ear that Batman needs a better Joker. We then see him ominously wear the comedian's hat as he claims that all of them had hoped that Jason would be the next Joker, but sadly, he hasn't proved worthy of it. This is when the comedian begins wailing on Jason's head again with a crowbar in a twisted recreation of past events. The comedian continues to beat Jason's skull, mysteriously claiming this to be more fun than the last time. Jason simply looks back and tells the comedian to make sure that Jason is dead this time, but it is then that the comedian reveals that he doesn't share the criminal's vision. He is still rooting for Jason. He is still rooting for Jason to be reborn for a third time after this beating, and he will finally prove himself worthy of being the next Joker. The comedian then raises the crowbar above his head and brings it down with such force that Jason's entire world is covered in red and he is knocked unconscious. A few hours later, Batman and Batgirl break into the facility, only to then be ambushed by the hundreds of humans infected by the Joker toxin. They realize they are victims and try to retaliate without harming anyone, but the sheer numbers are overwhelming for them both. Both of them get swarmed by the infecteds, and Batman's utility belt gets stolen off of him. He then hears a beep and realizes that the recall function of the Batmobile has been activated. He quickly grabs Batgirl and jumps out of the way as the very next second, the Batmobile comes crashing in through the wall beside them. This explosion kills the majority of the victims and incapacitates the rest. Batgirl gets the scare of her life when for a moment it seems that one of the impaled victims might be Jason, but they then end up finding him further inside the facility. Although Barbara has been focused on finding Jason, Batman has been looking around and taking in everything to try and solve the mystery of what the Jokers are planning. Jason at first is scared to even come close to them, but when Bruce confronts him, Jason takes off his broken helmet and throws it at Bruce while blaming Bruce for the path he was forced to take. Barbara manages to calm him down by saying they only want to take Jason somewhere safe for now. Everything else can be taken care of afterwards. Barbara leaves Jason in her old apartment, the one she used to stay at when she had injured her legs, and then confronts Bruce. She feels that Bruce should be with Jason right now, but Bruce insists on pursuing the leads he has managed to find. As the two of them head off to do their job, Jason wakes up in the apartment a few hours later. Barbara's past life, her wheelchair, her personal calendar, and her self-help books all give him enough confidence to get back up and get his life together again. And when Barbara comes to check up on him, he learns that the people around Barbara, her father, her therapist, and Bruce helped her get back on her feet. She tells Jason that the loved ones around her are what she and Bruce want to try and be to him. Jason reveals that he has felt alone all his life, prompting Barbara to kiss him. However, she walks back on her decision the very next second and ensures that Jason knows that kissing him was a mistake. Jason promises to help them solve the case of the three Jokers, and we then catch up with Batman at the Batcave. He is exploring missing person files, specifically missing clowns, missing criminals, while looking at his past encounters with the Joker. He seems to have figured out something when we watch him turn towards the globe and stare at Alaska for some reason. This revelation is juxtaposed by the comedian joking about Joe Chill and how chilly his name is. We then see a fire in Blackgate Prison and Joe Chill missing from his hospital bed. Joe is currently in a purple van speeding through the streets while being confronted by the comedian. The comedian forces the same hat Joe wore on the night of the Wayne murders and then begins filming him. "It's time to finally confess, Mr. Chill. Why did you really kill Thomas and Martha Wayne?" The Joker laughs anticipatingly as it becomes clearer than ever that whatever the plan is, it is closely associated with the death of Bruce's parents. Batman 3 Jokers, issue number 3, Hide the Truths. The last issue begins by listing the 3 Jokers in the order of 1, 3, and 2. The criminal first, the clown second, and the comedian third. And then it shows us the plethora of other Jokers they tried to create by infecting people from various walks of life. Good people, bad people, nobodies, criminals, the rich, the poor, everyone. All these photos have been labelled and laid out on the table by Batman for Jason and Barbara's viewing pleasure. Jason tells Bruce and Barbara about the Jokers trying to create a new one, but what puzzles Batman is why they would reveal their plan to him, because they would know that Batman would learn about it. However, this moment is interrupted when Jason vows to kill all of them, and this forces Bruce to lunge at him. He wants Jason to stop murdering. He tells Jason that he wanted to kill the Joker too for what he did to Jason and Barbara, and this forces Jason to show his bitterness. He is angry that Bruce didn't kill the Joker, which is why he is itching to do the job. Jason then reveals his perspective. He thinks Bruce is manipulative. The only reason he isn't confessing that Jason murdered the clown is because not only Barbara, but Bruce's identity would be exposed as well. Barbara tries to side with Bruce, but Bruce stops her. He simply says that Jason has never understood his perspective, and he never will. Dismissively, Bruce tries to go back to the job at hand. He asked Jason for help solving the case of 3 Jokers, so they should focus on that. Jason agrees, and then Batman tells them what he has found so far. He tells them that the criminal reminds Batman of their earliest confrontations. He is more goal-oriented and less interested in theatrics. The clown reminds him of his later confrontations with Joker, and he revels in the campiness of his plans. But the comedian, he scares Bruce because there is something sadistic behind that creepy smile, and Bruce suspects he is stronger than the others. Bruce reveals that one of these is bound to be the original Joker who created the other 2 as a joke for the world. As a way to taunt him, Batman, Barbara asks if Bruce can tell them anything else, and Bruce is about to confess something, but then he quickly bites his tongue and instead apologizes to Jason. He tries to get him to leave the identity of Red Hood behind, but Jason refuses the offer. He asks Bruce to focus on the case because he is completely fine, but as Jason says this, we see the memory of being struck in the head with a crowbar twice by the Joker flash in his mind. Jason then catches on to the fact that Bruce was about to answer Barbara's question, but now Bruce is denying it, claiming that he had nothing more to add to the clues. Then an alert from Blackgate Prison pops up on the computer, and 3 of them learn that Joe Chill has been abducted. Batman decides to investigate Joe's cell and finds hidden among his books tons of letters written over the years, all addressed to Bruce Wayne. When he inquires about the unsent letters, he is redirected to Reverend Evans. Meanwhile, Batgirl and Jason are standing outside, and Jason uses this chance to try and apologize to Barbara. Barbara, however, is furious because he has trapped her and Bruce in this perpetual state where they can't hand him over to the police for murder because that would mean risking their identities. But Barbara promises to give up her secret identity if anything like this happens again. Batman meanwhile meets up with Reverend Evans and realizes that Joe has been repenting his actions since he was incarcerated. He has been writing these letters for years, not as a way to repent or ask for forgiveness, but as a way to explain why he did what he did. As Bruce is discovering this, we see someone break into the old Monarch Theatre, the same one where Bruce's parents were murdered, and as this happens, we see Bruce reach the last letter in the stack, which is not addressed to Bruce Wayne, but instead the Batman. Batman opens the letter only to find tickets to the Mark of Zorro, the last film Bruce saw with his parents on the night of the murders, and a card that clearly states that the tickets are from the Joker. And so the Bat family moves in silence as they reach the Monarch. The title reads, "One night show only, the new Joker," and Batman already knows what will ensue. Silently, he orders Barbara to enter through the roof, while ordering Jason to take the side entrance as he enters through the main door himself. They all move like a well-oiled machine, and all of them have managed to make their way inside without making a single sound. Things seem to be going well until Batman reaches the screen, and all hell breaks loose. The footage of Joe Chill recorded by the comedian begins playing on the screen as Batgirl reaches for the projector room. Joe is being forced to confess what he has written in the letters, and as this confession begins, so does the assault by hundreds of failed Jokers on Batgirl and Red Hood. And this is when the criminal confronts Batman from the balcony. He has Joe tied to a chair, and he reveals that Joe is going to be the new Joker. He had initially considered using Jason and Barbara, but they both lack what is needed for the creation. Barbara has too much heart, and Jason lacks sophistication. Batman grapples to the balcony, but when the criminal reveals that he has dynamite strapped all over his body, he stays behind. This is when, in the footage, Joe Chill confesses that he already knew who the Waynes were when they entered the alley. It was all premeditated, unlike his confession in the court. It wasn't a random robbery like he had claimed earlier. He killed them because he was jealous of them, because the Waynes had everything he didn't. As Batman is confronting the criminal, we see Barbara get saved when 2 gunshots kill the infected Jokers, overpowering her. She is horrified and suspects that it's Jason who has reverted back to being a murderer, but that is when she is surprised to find the comedian standing there with a huge smile on his face while trying to snap a picture of her. As this happens, and Jason struggles on the ground floor, we see the criminal reveal to Batman that he is doing all this because he wants to mean more than the current undefined chaos that he is. He wants the Joker to be everything to be Batman, and that is something the murderer of his parents can be. The criminal lifts Joe into the air, and we see a huge container of Joker toxin directly below him. This is going to be a simple trade of physical health for mental health. This is when the comedian's voice from the playing footage screams at Joe to reveal the full truth, and Joe spills it all out. He blamed the Waynes for all his problems, for his lack of money, for his lack of job, which is why he had decided to ambush them and rob them. But he had never expected the Waynes to be accompanied by their son that night. And by the time he realized that Bruce was present at the scene, it was already too late. Now, this statement is juxtaposed with Jason rushing to Batgirl's aid, only to then be shot by the comedian through his shoulder. This forces Batgirl to grab the comedian's camera and smash it in his face. Joe Chill in the footage continues to say that he had fired the gun instinctively before realizing little Bruce's presence, and this is contrasted by the criminal firing a Tommy gun at Batman. Batman evades the fire, and the criminal stumbles after a missed shot and drops his lit lighter into the toxin below. As the lighter reaches the toxin and explodes, we see Batman subdue the criminal, and these events are juxtaposed by Joe Chill from the footage revealing that all he wanted to do after his incarceration was to apologize to Bruce Wayne, because he learned the actual truth about Martha and Bruce Wayne after he had murdered them. They were the only thing keeping Gotham together. They provided employment, gave enough charitable donations to help keep people off the street, and empowered the GCPD enough to keep the streets clean. Once they were dead, that is when Gotham was plunged into darkness. The criminal attacks Batman with a knife up on the walkway as the entire theatre is engulfed in flames. Simultaneously, we see the comedian snap a picture of Jason and Batgirl with his broken camera and then vanish into thin air as soon as they close their eyes to avoid the fire. The criminal manages to cut the rope holding Joe Chill in the air, forcing Batman to save him from the toxin below. Not only that, Batman uses this momentum to lunge himself towards the criminal and kick him through the nearest wall. This knocks out the criminal, and Joe Chill uses this opportunity to apologize to Batman. He knows he deserves death for what he did to little Bruce Wayne, but before he can say more, the wall behind him collapses and Batman saves his life once again. Joe thanks him sincerely, and Bruce uses this moment for his personal growth and forgives Joe for the murder of his parents. However, this cathartic moment is interrupted by the criminal who is about to pull the trigger to the dynamite on his jacket. The trigger is conveniently labelled pull, but before he can pull it, he is shot directly through the head. Another Joker is dead, and this time he has been shot through the head by the comedian. What's more puzzling is that all the pull tab to the dynamite did was reveal a joke flag that said boom, and even more puzzling is that the comedian is surrendering himself. After the police arrive, we see Jason try and shoot his chance with Barbara again, but he gets shot down. We then learn that Batman is accompanying the comedian to Arkham Arkham, and through Barbara's conversation with Commissioner Gordon, it is revealed that the Commissioner always knew that Batgirl was his daughter, and Barbara always knew that her dad was aware about her secret identity and was hiding it for her sake. However, we then catch up with Batman and the comedian, and he finally reveals his truth. Barbara Gordon, Jason Todd, Bruce Wayne. He reveals that he has known about their true identities for a long time, but he keeps them hidden because he wants them to continue living the life of masked vigilantes. He then reveals that he had orchestrated the death of the other two Jokers because he had grown tired of them. All the clown wanted was the suffering of others, which was too mundane in his purview. The criminal, on the other hand, wanted to change what the Joker meant. He wanted to go away from chaos and dreamed of a more defined Joker. The comedian found this to be blasphemous, and his comments make it seem that he might have been the first Joker, not the criminal. Batman is growing tired of these games and asks for the punchline, and this makes the comedian snarl, and he says that this is no joke. There is no punchline. He screams, "The criminal was wrong. I am the chaos. I am the devil. I am nothing to you and everything. Joker was never the broken one. It was you that was broken, Batman, broken by the pain of your parents' murder." The comedian goes on to reveal that he orchestrated all of this. He made the criminal believe that Joe Chill could become the defined and better Joker he dreamed of. But instead, what the comedian wanted to do was give Bruce catharsis. He wanted Bruce to forgive Joe Chill so that he could heal himself, and things went perfectly according to his plan. The Joker smiles menacingly as he says, "I healed your greatest wound, so now I can be your greatest pain. Me, I'll cut you, I'll hurt you, and I'll keep twisting that knife until the day we both die together." They have reached the Arkham Asylum by now, and the next page shows Bruce Wayne wishing Joe Chill a final goodbye in his last moments. Joe too got to fulfill his last request by handing over the letter he had written for Bruce. It is then revealed that Bruce gave Joe Chill a plot to be buried on the mansion grounds, and we catch up with Bruce a few days later as he drives through Alaska. We then see that he revealed the truth to Alfred before coming here, and this is juxtaposed by Jason's letter to Barbara that he has stuck to her apartment door. Jason essentially expresses that he can give up the mantle of Red Hood if Barbara helps him heal and decides to be his partner. This is juxtaposed with Barbara once again running on the treadmill at full speed until it finally breaks. However, once Jason is gone, the letter's tape gives way and it gets brushed away by the janitor and thrown into the trash. Bruce arrives outside a remote cozy house in Alaska as he reveals to Alfred that he knew the real Joker, the comedian's identity, a week after he had shown up in Gotham, and it is then revealed that the family that the comedian was hallucinating about earlier was his actual family. There wasn't a foolproof case against him, which is why the local police officers had staged the death of his wife and child, which allowed her to start a new life in Alaska, away from his torture. Bruce watches the wife and child living a happy life in Alaska, which is juxtaposed by him telling Alfred that this is why he needs to keep the Joker's identity hidden, else the family would be in danger. And more importantly, Joker's name has never been important. Who and what the Joker is capable of is what should be curbed.